Oh, the coveted postdoctoral fellowship. So you've done 4, 5, 6 years of your graduate programs, you finish, and then you successfully land a postdoctoral fellowship. The postdoctoral fellowship is supposed to be a time, may say 1 to 2 years period, where you're able to flesh out that one chapter of your dissertation into a book project, or you're wanting to transform that one dissertation chapter into an article. Or perhaps you want to use that time to prepare your book proposal for that publication house. The postdoctoral time can be a time where you have infinite possibilities, and it can also be a very daunting period because while 1 or 2 years can be generous, it can also feel like a very short time. So in this episode of Office Hours with Juan Manuel, we discuss some habits, networks, and publishing strategies during your postdoc period to secure your tenure stream job. So in this episode, we won't be talking about how you can use your postdoc if you've had a tenure stream job prior to getting it. We're going to be talking about how you can use that tenure stream job to help you transition into possible job market strategies when you go back on the job market, as was the case for me. So we're going to be talking about some strategies for making the most and enjoying the time at your best. If you're new to Office Hours with Juan Manuel, this is a channel where we talk about how to survive and thrive in academia. Welcome to Office Hours.
This is Office Hours with Juan Manuel, creating an academia without walls so you can thrive on your journey.
I was in my 6th year of a PhD program at UC Berkeley when I landed a 2-year Mellon postdoc at Cornell University. I was really excited. Prior to applying to jobs and a postdoc fellowship, I remember meeting with my dissertation chair. She said one of the best things that you can do is to land a postdoctoral fellowship that leads directly into a tenure stream job, or at least gives you the time to develop that transition from dissertation into book project or to start something new, as I did. And when I went on the job market, that was my goal. My goal was to land a 1 or 2 year stream, a 1 or 2 year postdoc fellowship that would transition either in tenure track stream or to at least give me the best possible time. Fortunately, I was able to land a Mellon postdoc at Cornell University for 2 years in the Society for the Humanities. I was really excited about this opportunity, but I also didn't know what to do. Right, I was going to a new institution. I didn't know the funding bodies. I didn't know how I could maximize that time. I knew what I wanted to do with my dissertation, with the journal articles, but how to actually make sure that I have the best environment to get that work done. And I was relocating from California to New York, so that was an additional thing that I had to keep in mind. For some of you, you got a postdoc at the same institution, or perhaps you're in the same state, or you're returning to a city where you've lived before. For me, that was not the case. I was moving to a new city, and on top of that, it was during the pandemic. I want to address all the nuances of that in this specific episode of relocating to a new city, especially not during a pandemic, but I'm going to be talking about some of the strategies to help you prepare for making the best conditions possible to maximize and enjoy your time during your 1 or 2 year postdoc fellowship. So one of the first things that you can do is actually request to fly out in advance to look for housing. This might be especially important if you are relocating for this postdoc with a partner, or you have dependents, or you have also pets that you want to make sure that they have the best environment possible. I asked my institution to fly me out, and I said, it's really important for me to be as prepared as possible to do the best work that I can do during my time there. But in order to do that, I need to make sure that my housing situation is aligned before I get there. Because once you get to the institution, say in August, September, and in some cases even October, you're getting there and you're thrown into this environment where you're constantly producing, or maybe you're excited about the fellowship that you're a part of. You're getting together with your colleagues for afternoon dinners, for late evening performances, or for just having convivial time, say in a research lab. And so it's important that you do a lot of prep work before you get there. So one of the things that I would suggest that you do is reach out to your hosting institution or to your hosting department and say, hey, I'm interested if you can fly me out in advance to look for housing, just so that I can identify the different areas. In some areas, it's very difficult to find housing, and specifically good housing. And if you're traveling with a family, you're probably looking for a minimum of 2-bedroom, 1-bath area that is easily accessible to public transportation, but that is close enough to stores or supermarkets, and that requires getting spatially sort of cognitively mapped, so you know where you're going to live and how where you're going to live is going to impact the type of work that you are going to do. So another thing that you can do in preparation to make sure that you are going to do the best work that you can is to also familiarize yourself with the habits and conversations that are happening in the department that is going to host you, or the program if they are linked to departments. So reach out to the departments and let them know who you are, and so you're going to be there. You can do this either in early spring after you've been notified that you have a postdoc, or I would say in the summer. Certainly don't expect to get a response, but put yourself on the radar. And what you do is see if you can arrange sometimes to visit the classes early on in the semester during the first week or the quarter, and this will give you an idea of the type of intellectual questions happening in your department. I wasn't able to do this as much because I relocated during the pandemic, and certainly while Zoom was possible for me, it still felt like Zoom fatigue was something that I wanted to avoid, so I limit myself in the number of class participations that I did. But I know this has been a successful strategy for many people, and I recommend this to you too. I did do this, participated in some events, in some class sessions, but not as many as I could have or would have wanted to if it was actually in person, since I would have been already in the building. So this goes a long way to help you be connected to your colleagues, but also to know what type of conversations are happening. And it's a way for you to share your work. You ask your colleagues, can I just take 1 or 2 minutes to talk about my work? And that's it. It's just a way for people to get to you, because you're part of a community for your 1 to 2 years. And this is especially important, if you're going to be on the job market and the conversation may come up that you could possibly stay as part of a retention offer, or it might be a way for your colleagues to also write letters of recommendation for you as you transition to your next step. Okay, moving on to other recommendations that are a way to continue to build the sense of community. Another thing that you can do is, if you have research funds, ask if they can increase it. Certainly, having a research pool of money to help you do your work is going to be super important. And if you are offered one, that's really wonderful. And if you can, ask if you can get a couple of more, especially if they're joint postdoctoral fellowships with a couple of different programs and departments. See if there's a different funding pool to get you additional funds, because you want to be able to travel to conferences, or perhaps you want to use some of those research funds to organize dinner with potential collaborators in advance, and you want to start something at the beginning of the semester and say, hey, I want to organize this dinner for my departmental colleagues that are going to be working with me for the next 1 or 2 years. I want to invite you. It's kind of like the equivalent, I guess you could say, of a housewarming party, but a departmental housewarming party, and specifically for the research that you are going to do. I had a 1-1 teaching requirement during my postdoc period, and this means that I was required to teach a course every semester, and these are courses that I could assign myself. Fortunately, I was not asked to teach other courses. If you have a teaching requirement, find out if you have to submit new course forms for your classes. You want to make sure you want to find this out in advance so you're not doing them last minute. Fortunately, I had some colleagues let me know in spring of advance that there were some required forms that needed to submit out in order to go through this formal review process for my new courses, where I was supposed to send, the course objectives, the syllabus, and then also, examples of the books that were going to be required and what type of rooms there might be, because you're coming late into this community's curriculum timeline. They're kind of working you and weaving you into these standard processes, and they have protocols and forms for reviewing course proposals. So you want to find out as early as possible, so you're not doing these things very last minute, or possibly during the summer when you're planning a move, or when you are already there and having to kind of rush to get all of these documents together and think through your syllabus and your requirements. And now I'm going to switch a little bit more into also talking about how to take small steps to build community. If you received a fellowship, you are likely going to be part of a small community of people who are coming in either also as fellows, either from the university, the department, as well as others. So it's important to build these micro communities to really help you navigate what can be a very uncertain time, but that is ripe for being able to do really small things that you wouldn't otherwise get to do. So for example, I started a bread circle my first year. I have seen others do tie-dye socks and handing them out to their fellows. So it's not about doing extra work, it is about using your time to build community. And also I encourage you to identify what you enjoy doing and invite others into this process. So with my bread circle, we, a group of us committed to baking a bread I think initially it was once a month, and then for a period we did twice a week. And we each prepared a bread, and then we exchanged that within this group, so that way it was a way to exchange delicious bread. There was also gluten-free bread. But it was a way to build community and to get us to talk about the type of bread that I was doing. And it's just a way to build connections without having to only talk about your research or the article that you're publishing. And this is a small thing that you can that goes a long way. The final thing that I want to talk about in this specific episode on what to do now that you have a postdoc is to start thinking about taxes. I know, I'm not a tax specialist, and so don't think about this as tax or legal advice. But I will just say something to keep in mind. With fellowship, they can be handed out with lump sum amounts that have tax implications for you. So talk to the HR department in your institution to try to figure out how this might impact you. You want to make sure you contribute to your taxes as you go along, rather than waiting until the next year because you don't want to get taxed for not having contributed enough, because there will be a small fee from the IRS for under contributing. So talk to your HR department. And this last one, as I said, is about taxes, but it really has more to do with the financial implications of your finance, especially if you're going from being a graduate student to a postdoc. Your fellowship could have possibly doubled in terms of what you were getting during your graduate programs. And so your monies are going to increase during this period. And while it's wonderful to have additional funds to help pay for, monies that are due, or loans, or other growing expenses, or other types of things that are on your list, you want to make sure that you also think about the tax implications. And we don't often talk about that, and the university won't give you legal advice or tax advice, but something to keep in mind for you to think about as, you're there not just as a person who's figuring out your article and your book project. You're there as an entire person, and you may have dependents, kids, you're figuring out housing. As a part of that, you're also figuring out taxes. So this wraps up the session of Office Hours with Juan Manuel. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Enjoy.
This is Office Hours with Juan Manuel, creating an academia without walls so you can thrive on your journey.